so up here is the eternal realm of forms. And everything that has ever existed or could ever exist has eternally existed in this realm of forms. And there's categories up here. And so everything from physical objects to concepts. So we could have love up here, this eternal concept of the good, the true, the beautiful. But it could also be things like a human being, a dog, a tree, a table, a chair. That has always existed, will always exist. Now, what I can't tell from the readings of Plato is, are these eternal forms synonymous with God or the mind of God, or is it like this separate template that God looks at and then makes the physical material world? And so that's a debate between Platonists and scholars. And later we get Neoplatonism, which clearly states that the eternal forms are from the mind of God. And that's why they're eternal, because God has always existed. God has always known everything. God cannot have new knowledge because there's nothing new for God to know. So these ideas would be in the mind of God. And then God speaks these ideas into existence, at least in the Jewish tradition, right, in the creation account. But these ideas were always there. That is the ultimate reality, these ideal forms. And so Plato becomes what's known as the father of idealism. And with his disciple Aristotle, like all good disciples do, he took the opposite approach of his teacher, and he becomes the father of realism or physicalism, where he says, no, it's the physical material world of things that is primary, and we look at physical objects, and then we think of abstract concepts or ideas and put them into these eternal categories. Plato is saying, and Socrates are saying, no, first you have this realm of eternal ideas. Everything begins with an idea, and then we have concepts, and concepts are our thoughts about these eternal ideas. Now, as humans, that's the best we can do, is to conceptualize these ideal forms. But then this physical material world, the world of sense perception, that is actually like a copy of a copy. And now you looking at me on this virtual Zoom call, that's like a copy of a copy of a copy. And it's just weird when you think about it. And that's how Plato and Socrates are seeing reality. The most real things are ideas. Concepts are the next most real, and then the least real are actual physical material objects. Now, he's not saying physical material objects aren't real, but everything that's physical material is transitory. It came from matter, and to matter it will return. From the dust you were formed, from the dust you will return. All our physical elements, earth, air, fire, water, ether, will be dispersed again back into the cosmos. But our concepts, this realm of ideal forms, can never be changed or destroyed. Now, common people, according to Plato and Socrates, confuse the world of appearances, physical things, with ultimate reality. That was the problem with the philosophers that came before, the monistic materialists. They saw a rock and assumed that was the physical, real reality. Where Plato and Socrates understood, no, the concept of a rock is more real than the rock, and the idea that we get the concept from is more real than all of them. And that idea of rock is eternal, and it will always be there, even if no physical rock exists in the universe. The concept or idea of rock cannot be destroyed. And if you doubt the truth of this, look around where you're sitting right now, in your room or wherever you happen to be. Every physical thing you can see was first a concept or an idea in somebody's mind. That laptop or computer you're working on was first an idea that someone brought into physical reality. Even you were first an idea or a thought in the mind of God before he physically manifests you into the world. And so this is where idealism comes from. And it's also how you would make value judgments. So when I'm in the classroom, what I would usually do is use an example of chairs. We know things are chairs, according to Socrates and Plato, because we have this eternal concept of chairhood or chairness in our minds. Now, it's not perfect. It's broken and flawed because we're humans. We're not living in that ideal spirit realm. We have a physical body, we have physical brains, we have physical cultures, and so they affect and distort our view. But if we think about it, using our minds, using our reason, not using our senses, we can conceptualize and define and even evaluate what a chair is. And so if you brought a bunch of different chairs to me, I have an internal template of chair in my mind, and I use that to evaluate. That's a good chair, that's a mediocre chair, that's a lousy chair. Because in my mind, I have a template of what an ideal chair looks like. Same thing with people. In my mind, I have a template of what the ideal man and woman would look like and think like and be like. And so when I meet physical human men and women, I'm comparing them to this template in my mind and saying, wow, this one is approaching the ideal, and this one's so far from the ideal, I can barely tell that they're even human, right? And so that is how Platonic idealism works. And so you get this really interesting hierarchy from absolute, eternal, indestructible, to thinking about concepts of those eternal things, and then the physical manifestations of those things. And it's a hierarchy of reality. Ideas are most real, concepts are next, and then the actual physical things are least real. They're all real, but in degrees of reality. These can come and go, these abide. And the concepts are in between. And so the philosopher is trying to get from the world of sense perception, working up to get as close in the conceptual realm to the ideal forms as possible. And that's why Socrates and Plato thought philosophers should be ruling the country and not people who are confusing the actual physical chair with the ideal of chair. Okay, woo, that was quite a monologue. That was not a dialogue. Okay.